Announcing the commencement of the first purge.
I want you to change the world, and don't think that this is going to happen peacefully or you can do it alone. We need to kill the rich. You get out there, you use your weapons, and you rip Washington apart. You hunt down the billionaires, the bank bosses, the CEOs, the scumbags and the liars, the governors, the lobbyists, the senators, because they're all the same, and you hang them.
Just remember all the good the purge does.
Good morning, everyone. It is May 24th, 2018. I'm Eric. I'm here at the Free Thought Project. Ron Paul, Republicans and Democrats are teaming up for federal gun confiscation bill. In an email Tuesday night, former Congressman and presidential candidate Ron Paul released an ominous statement claiming that a source they have in the Senate revealed Democrats are teaming up with Republicans to push through a massive gun control bill. According to their source, as Paul explained, Senators Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham are teaming up with Dianne Feinstein to ram through one of the worst nationwide gun confiscation schemes ever devised. The gun confiscation bill, according to Paul, is designed to disarm Americans without any due process. The senators are using the recent tragic shootings in Texas as an impetus behind the law, in spite of the fact this law would not have prevented the shootings at all. As the Free Thought Project has previously reported, some states have already begun implementing laws like this one, using mass shootings as their ammunition. States have enacted red flag or risk protection laws which allow police to confiscate a person's weapons before they are ever given a chance to defend themselves. In both of the gun confiscation cases reported by the Free Thought Project, neither of the two men were suspected of committing a crime, nor had they committed a crime. Under the Fifth and Fourth Amendments, due process clauses are in place to act as safeguards from arbitrary denial of life, liberty, or property by the government outside the sanction of law. What's more, neither of the men were granted their Sixth Amendment rights to be confronted with the witnesses against them. In both cases, simple orders under new laws were issued, arguably arbitrarily, which stripped these two men of their property. In spite of what officials claim, in spite of what officials and the media claim, when a person is stripped of their constitutional rights, albeit temporarily, without being given the chance to make their own case based on what can be entirely arbitrary accusations, this is the removal of due process. Now, this is not the removal of due process. The removal of due process started when the court system or the sheriff's departments or the city police had the ability to keep you in jail for years without any kind of trial. You're supposed to have the right to a speedy trial, and many people sit in county jail for as many as 5 years while waiting to prove their innocence. So, due process has been denied for a long time. As Ron Paul explains, this removal of due process could soon be a federal law. Excuse me. Under so-called red flag or risk protection order orders, anti-gun family members, neighbors, or associates could have your guns taken away based on mere accusations without any real due process or trial. In secret court proceedings where only your accuser is present, judges could determine that you pose a significant danger to someone, including yourself. Imagine your surprise when a heavily armed SWAT team arrives to seize your lawfully owned firearms. It could cost you, or would cost you, tens of thousands of dollars in court costs and weeks or even months to try and convince the court they made a mistake. And believe me when I tell you, the courts really, rarely ever admit they've made a mistake. I can give you one good example of this. There's a person that was accused of murder and rape. DNA evidence showed that they could not have been the person that committed the crime, and yet they were never released and never will be. To be clear, no one here is advocating for people determined to be mentally unfit to be able to possess firearms. However, they need to be determined to be mentally unfit before they lose their rights. Now listen, if you're a strict constitutionalist, then you would never support such a thing. The Constitution does not say anything about criminal, about mentally unfit. Certainly the Founding Fathers would have considered such things when authoring the Second Amendment. I think they probably knew that these claims would be used against the people in order to have their firearms taken. And by the way, there is no constitutional law. I've shown this in other videos. We have not been under constitutional law since at least 1933. And I'm thinking it probably goes back all the way back to the Civil War. So, and there's plenty of evidence that shows this. To those who may be in favor of such laws, consider the following. There is no way to stop an estranged spouse from calling police reportedly. There is no way to stop an estranged spouse from calling the police repeatedly and telling them their ex is threatening to cause harm to others. While the man in Florida had his guns taken away for being psychologically unfit, the man in Seattle simply open-carried a pistol and looked out of windows, and his guns were taken because his neighbors thought it was strange. Anyone, anytime, now has the ability to claim someone else is a threat and have police take their guns. One does not need to delve into the multiple what-if scenarios to see what sort of ominous implications arise from such a practice. What's more, police in some states now have the power to deem you a threat at any time and legally disarm you. Due process be damned. This is the exact scenario that Donald Trump advocated for in February. You might recall he said take the guns first, go through due process second. As Ron Paul explains, this is entirely unconstitutional. Now, I'm going to say this very plainly. If the Constitution was still being honored, these people wouldn't have the ability to do this. The Constitution is meant as a safeguard against government tyranny. Of course, that safeguard has failed. The words of the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution are so easy to grasp. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There are no asterisks or footnotes. There are no sentences that follow which start with the words unless or however. The right to defend your life and property shall not be infringed by the government, period. It says nothing about criminality. It says nothing about mental illness. It says nothing about when these people change their minds and deem it's too unsafe for the American people to have the ability to protect themselves, their children, and their properties from violence. Now, if you're a lawful gun owner, you may want to consider putting some of your weapons away in a deep, dark place where they'll never be found. Because at some point, they're going to roll out the United Nations. We have to see if Donald Trump signs this bill. I have to ask the question, what kind of mental gymnastics will Trump supporters use in order to justify him signing a gun confiscation bill? What kind of mental cognitive dissonance and Stockholm syndrome will be used to continue supporting Donald Trump? What kind of justifications will the people use to not fully rebel against any such notion? I hope, for the sake of all of us, that all of you come to your senses and understand your government and the governments of the world are the most dangerous obstacle, threat to your life, to your liberty, and to your pursuit of happiness. I hope y'all have a good day. And remember, kill the state before the state kills you.